everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the 5 Door Media Podcast, where we dive deep into what makes home service companies thrive. This season, we are exploring the topic of culture, the people, principles, and purpose that define the heartbeat of service businesses. And today's guest is someone who is betting everything on culture and winning. Rusty McCommas is the owner of Evergreen Lawn and Landscape, a rapidly growing lawn care business based in Argyle, Texas. After spending nearly 2 decades in corporate America, Rusty made a life-altering decision to walk away from the boardroom and buy a lawn company he knew nothing about, all in the name of building an employee-first business. Since acquiring Evergreen in 2018, Rusty has led remarkable transformation. What once was a traditional $1.8 million business is now on track to hit $5.5 million in 2025, powered not by just growth, but by a culture that genuinely puts people first. He's redefined what it means to take care of a team, paid holidays, healthcare, 401k matches, PTO, bonuses, and even AC in the trucks, all designed to show employees that they matter. Along the way, he's navigated near burnout, staffing crises, and a steep learning curve in an unfamiliar industry. But through it all, his conviction never wavered. His great businesses are built by investing in great people. Rusty, thanks for being on the show.
Hey, Drew. Appreciate you having me. First time doing one of these, so it should be fun.
Absolutely. Podcasts are great. You're going to do great. I know you've got a good sense of humor. So this should be a good conversation. And I've been saying this on episodes where you are a client of ours. So I just want to put that out there just to be clear, right? Just to be honest and transparent. You are a client of ours, and you are another one of our clients that when we brought up to the team that we're going to be doing a season on culture, multiple of our team members said, you've got to get Rusty on the show. He's got a great company culture that they've got to experience on some trips down to Argyle to meet with your team and create some content for you. So kudos to you. You got recommended by our staff to be on the show.
Well, I tell them I appreciate that. So
I will. Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's get started. The topic of culture. I want to start at the root of it. How maybe do you define company culture in your home service business, but in just home service businesses in general?
So just to clarify, Drew, so when you say, how do I define it? I mean, what do I think looks like a successful
culture? Yeah, any of that. I mean, what is company culture to you? If you had just a dictionary definition of it.
Okay. So probably not a dictionary definition, but maybe the simplest way I describe it is when I walk in the door in the morning, am I excited about coming to work and being around the people I'm working with, or am I dreading it? And that's probably a very oversimplified answer, but that's how I view the lens of is the culture in the office, is everything, is it where we want it to be? And it comes back to, do I enjoy coming to work every day? And my expectation is that's the same mindset that I want all of our employees to have, is are they excited about coming to work every day and working with the people that they're working with?
I love that. And there's been a few other guests that say something similar. And I think I saw there was a meme on the internet somewhere. Your company culture is defined by the level of Sunday scaries your employees have before they go back to work on Monday, right? So what are your emotions? Sunday night, the weekend is winding down. You know you have to get up and go to work tomorrow. What's your gut emotion from that? Is that pretty much what you're saying?
So yes, it's funny that you use that as an analogy. So my wife, Amy, she works in the business as well. When she used to work for corporate back in the day, we both worked for HP EDS. That was always a Sunday was a day that she dreaded for that reason, is because she crap, I got to go to work the next day. So I think that's a great analogy in terms of, yes, am I excited on Sunday, or I'm like, oh shit, I don't know if I can cuss on this, but do I like going to work or not? So yes, that's a great analogy.
Well, yeah. So in your bio, you did come from that corporate world, and it sounds like your wife did as well. What are some lessons that you've learned about company culture from the big corporate world on maybe what to do, but maybe even more importantly, what not to do? What are some things you took away?
I can give you a list of what not to do, or at least what I learned.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, yeah. So we both worked in the IT outsourcing industry. So there's a big company, Ross Perot. Those of you know who he is. Used to own a company, EDS, in Plano, and some of the things over the 20 years we were there that would frustrate us in terms of culture. So examples would be, and I'm going to get like real extreme to little things, but things like about to announce a 10,000 person layoff and they cut the severance benefits for everybody.
Oh
Right.
wow.
I mean, that's a big one, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
pretty critical. Other things would be um, little things like not acknowledging your birthday or not acknowledging been here for 20 years, some type of celebration. When you get to a company that big, doing any kind of company events like lunches or anything that's sponsored by the company, a lot of those would go away. And then
Mm.
other things, in the corporate world, everything is managed quarter to quarter. And so a lot of times, like if you were struggling with your budget at a company level, the first thing they would start cutting is employee engagement benefits. So, as an example, uh, the job that I left before we purchased Evergreen, I ran a number of call centers in Jamaica and Guatemala City, and
Mm.
one of the things they would do every quarter, quarter would get tight, and they would start cutting things like parties or they would have a budget for employee engagement, and that was one of the first things to get cut. So it really just came back to employees were numbers. It's the old cliche: employees were
Yeah.
numbers. Um, Executives are worried about bonuses, and it's anytime there was things cuts were to happen, it was all right. Let's cut it from the employees. And though again, I could probably there's all kinds of other things to examples I could give, but those are some of the big ones that we just got frustrated with.
Was there anything you learned to do? Was there anything that was like done well?
Yeah. So yeah, just like with any corporation, you have great people. We were fortunate. I almost always had a manager that I respected.
Mm.
And one of the things I'll tell you one thing I learned from a manager that relates to culture. So I'm a manager that part of my goal is to grow my employees. And sometimes that's within the organization because we have growth opportunities. And other times their next step is outside the organization. And some of the great managers that I used to work for had that philosophy of we're going to try to grow you as much as we can. And if your next step, because we just don't have the next opportunity, is outside my organization, I'm going to be your first advocate to try to get you that other job. And so,
Mm.
and that was just a management style that I think is important to culture, and that employees trust you that you're always going to look out for their best interest, even if it means that their best interest for them and their family may be maybe outside of Evergreen, and that's okay. So that's definitely a lesson that I learned from just being around working for great leaders.
I mean, you use the word leader, but I think of like a coach too, right? That like the job as the coach is to pull out the best of people that even in the moment that they might not even think they have, but like to pull out the best of them, right? You
Yep.
mentioned earlier too, on the list of like what not to do. You talked about like don't recognize your birthdays or don't recognize like maybe work anniversaries and things like that. What are some things that you do at Evergreen that are like that might just be low hanging fruit things that some people listening might not think about?
Sure. Yeah. So we have so some of the things we do for our field staff is we have cookouts every 6 to 8 weeks where we either get a food truck or we actually had grills where we have two of the guys just take the day off and they grill a bunch of steak for everybody. But one of the things we do during those cookouts is we have a huge tres leches cake, and we
Mm.
put everybody's name that had a birthday on that for that quarter, and then we announce it and sing happy birthday to everybody. So that's something we do for the field staff, and then for our office staff or our ops leaders, we'll do birthday lunches, we'll do birthday gift baskets. We have a very sarcastic sense of humor culture in our company, which definitely aligns to
I see why Joe likes you guys.
yeah,
That makes sense now. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
it aligns to my personality. And we'll do funny things. I'm trying to think of one. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but um, pretty much just kind of joking around and not to digress a little bit, but one of our core values is we take our job serious, ourselves not so much.
Mm.
And so we really try to incorporate that into all of our lunches and happy hours and things like that we do for our staff.
Love that. Very cool. Was there a specific moment or maybe a decision in your entrepreneurial journey that fundamentally shaped your company culture? And I think your
Yes.
story is interesting too, because that might have happened before you became an entrepreneur. Or maybe not. I don't want to give your answer, but like you do have a unique story where you did start off where you started and then kind of like fell into this entrepreneur world where you knew nothing about lawn and landscaping, right? You know what I mean? I love that about your story. But was there a key moment that you could remember, like, this is who we're going to be and this is why?
Yes, so I'd say there were two. So the first one was when we decided, we being Amy and I, my wife, decided we wanted to get out of corporate, because we just felt like uh, you can run a company that's employee centric and make money. Like those two goals can coexist.
Mm.
And so that was kind of the first, like, all right, we want to do something different. We know that we can run a company where we actually can treat our employees as important value added people. The second one that was probably really impactful to me is the first. So we bought the company in October of 2018. So our first full year was 2019. And our company uses the H-2B visa program, probably a whole separate podcast on that. Great program. But anyways, our first year we owned the company, we didn't get our visa workers until July, August, which if you're, you guys familiar with the green industry, your busiest season is from March to June. And so not getting your guys was, I mean, it was difficult. I think in the bio, I mean, I literally almost had a nervous breakdown. Like, what in the heck did I do to myself? But anyways, the reason that was important is we kind of saw the shift in the labor market and the shift in um, government's perception of H-2B and whether it's good or bad. And so we knew the aha moment was we have to be different in our industry because there's going to be a time where labor is going to be constrained. And I know in this industry, it's always kind of been like that, but I think it's gotten worse over the last 6, 7 years, 8 years, for a number of different reasons. And not getting our guys is like, okay, we have got to invest in our people. We've got to be the employer of choice. We've got to be one of the rare residential companies that's got benefits. And so really from that point in 2019 to, let's say, 2022, it was a 3-year journey to invest in our people. So very long answer, Drew, but that moment really sticks out in my mind is, okay, we've got to be different.
I love that. I love that attitude too. I mean, that's a classic entrepreneur attitude of we've got to be different, or it's that classic phrase. What is it? It's like, there's got to be a better way, right? You like the line you hear on every episode of Shark Tank and every pitch, right? Like, there's got to be a better way to do this. And you found out that way. What do you think? I think one of the first things you mentioned is such a powerful realization. They're like, wait a minute, we can be a business that puts people first. What do you think is such a holdup for people to realizing that? What are some hurdles that people have to jump to get to that part where they're like, wait, we can. This is a both and situation.
Right.
It isn't. This is not a we're either successful or put people first. This is an and situation. What do you think holds people back?
Yeah, that's a great question. So tell me if I don't answer it, but I think probably the biggest mental hurdle that holds people back is if you think of your labor as a cost and not as an asset. Then a cost is you're always looking, okay, how do I reduce cost? How do I minimize cost? As opposed to if you look at your labor as an asset, then you look at what's your return on investment. And I'm a finance guy. That's my background. And so most of my lens when I look at whether it's people, equipment, markets, whatever, services, is it's not the upfront expense or the expense, but what kind of return am I getting on that? And I don't know if that makes sense, but I think that is the hurdle that I see, that your people aren't an expense, they're an asset. And so
Yeah.
when when you add benefits, you add PTO, well, the return on that is okay, maybe you get lower turnover. Maybe you get them to refer their friends, and so you open up uh, a wider labor pool. And so it's always in the lens of looking at it as an asset, and how do I get a better return on that asset? Does that make sense?
It's an investment.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I
definitely.
think it's so easy to, especially in the green industry where a lot of these people, they start like a chuck in a truck, right?
Mhm.
Like he's got his lawnmower, he's got his leaf blower in the back of his truck, and he's just going house to house. And growing a business is hard. And one of the difficult things about growing a business and scaling a business is mindset. And like obviously having a growth mindset, but there's so much that goes inside of that growth mindset too. And it is what you're describing. It is the idea of having a mindset of what is an investment and what is an expense. And sometimes when you're growing and you're not used to having this little pesky thing called payroll, it's really easy to attach the people to that line item. But really, that line item is, it's what you pay the people, but there's so much more to it than just that payroll line item. Like you are investing in people that are investing in you.
Yeah, Drew. No, you're absolutely right. And just another example of this is, so I'm a part of multiple business groups, because always trying to learn from other owners and whatnot. And one of the things we see a lot is, uh, you've heard of companies to go from 500,000 to 1 million. Usually their hurdle is they need to hire an office manager, some kind of assistant.
Mm.
Um,
You're
and a
missing
lot
the who. Yeah.
Right, the who. But a lot of owners look at that as, oh my gosh, how am I gonna afford paying another $60,000 salary? But they're not looking, so they just see it as an expense, but they're not looking
Mm.
at it as, okay, but if I add this asset to the company, it's gonna free me up to go and sell more, or go and deliver more, or now I can add another two or $300,000. And it's just that mindset of, it's an asset, it's an investment, it's not an expense. So
Yeah.
similar dynamic, kind of different analogy, but kind of similar mindset that I think is just a hurdle.
I think what you're describing, there's a great book called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. And it's that whole concept. If you haven't read it, highly recommend it. But it's about buying back your time by hiring people to
Yeah,
do things that take you away from doing what you do best, right? And like what you're describing, like that office person, maybe you need a salesperson to go out and quote jobs, right? So you can
right.
focus on like only what you can do best, let those other people do it, and then you take on bigger tasks. So highly recommend the book, Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. It sounds like you've already read it, even though it looks like you're writing it down, so you haven't. So
I have
you're
not.
really going to like the topic. Yeah.
I'm finishing a book, so I'll make this my next one. Awesome.
Yeah, great audiobook too if you're an audiobook person. I mean, speaking of growing and scaling, so in your bio, you started out, it was a $1.8 million lawn and landscape company, right? And then you guys are on track to do 5.5 million this year. So you've grown, like you have scaled, right? What are some cultural challenges that maybe you've had to face as you've scaled, and how have you overcome it? Because being a leader for a company that is below seven figures or at 1.8, you need to be a whole different leader for a company that is at 5.5 million, right? As that
Right.
company grows and scales. So, what are some things that maybe you expected and you saw coming culturally, but also like maybe some things that you didn't expect, but then you've learned how to overgrow them?
Sure. Okay, so things that I've learned and things that I didn't anticipate from a culture standpoint. So one of the so we've just started implementing EOS. There's a book called Traction.
Yeah.
A lot of people are listening to podcasts and other green industry podcasts are familiar with it, heard of it, have read it. And one of the topics in the book talks about, and this concept is in other books too, but essentially having people in the right seat is critical. And there's kind of two takeaways for that. One is that in a small business, different from a corporation, you don't have, I mean, we have, I think, 10 people now in the office, like support staff. And that's not very many. There's nowhere to hide. So if you have an
Mm.
underperformer, you can't hide them over here in this seat. Like you can kind of do that in corporate. It happens all the time in corporate, move them to another organization. In a small business, you can't do that. I mean, they either have to perform or they're not. And the problem is, if you have eight A plus players and you've got 2 C players, if you don't move those C players out quickly, it brings all the A players down. And that's something
like a class average.
Yeah, right. And they get frustrated because they want to work with A type players, and so that's something that I've had to learn. Wasn't good at it. I don't like firing people. Nobody, well, most people don't. But it keeps me up at night, even if I know that it's the right decision. And so that's something I've had to learn over the last 6 years, is that, the old hire slow, fire fast, but it is so true. So that's one lesson. And then the other lesson that sticks out is that, and again, I've read this concept too, and it sucks when this happens, but unfortunately, if you're growing a small business and you want to grow and keep growing, the people that maybe get you to 2 million may not be the same people that you need to get to 4 million. And the people that get you to 4 million may not be the same people that you need to get you to 8 million, because as you start to grow, the skill sets that you need start to change and and morph. And so and sometimes that's hard, and sometimes you can find a position in the company for those people, and sometimes you can't, and it sucks. And we have been really good. We've had that happen. But I'm a big believer in, most of the times this hasn't bit me in the butt, but I'm a big believer in, be open with that person. And look, say it's not working out here, but we're going to help you figure out how to move you out of Evergreen in a humane way. We have severance, even though we're a small business, but it's tough. And so I would say those two things are things that I've had to learn, that are a little bit different than working in a big corporation where you just have a group of whatever, thousands of people. Does that make sense?
100%. And you keep dropping little nuggets of knowledge from books that I've read. And I'm curious, have you read the book 10X is Easier Than 2X?
Okay, so that's funny. That's what I'm reading right now.
Okay, so it's very fresh in your brain, right?
I'm
That book changed my life. Yeah, the book changed my life. I always tell the story. I was at my daughter's swim meet listening to the audiobook, and I was in this. If you've ever been to a swim meet, it's straight chaos, especially for little kids. It's just straight chaos. It's so loud. There's splashes everywhere. You don't walk out of that swim meet without getting wet somehow, right? But I remember being so focused on reading this book or listening to this book on audiobook. But there's a line in that book that really changed my life. And it's what got you to where you are now is not what's going to get you to where you're going.
Right.
And that can so easily be interchanged. Who got you to where you are now is not who's going to get you to where you're going. That what and who, right, can be transitioned and changed. And it's so true, and it's so true. And I could tell you're, like you said, in a humane way, because finding that person that got you to where you're going and then realizing they're probably not that person who's going to get you to where you're going next is heartbreaking at times. It can be gut wrenching, because obviously there's always a line between employer and employee, but we work in tight circles, right? And we grow to love these people as people, not just as employees. And that's a heartbreaking thing. It sounds like you've had to make some of those tough calls as your growth to 5.5 million, where you're at, or probably this year. How do you hold a culture tight in those moments? How do you keep it together to where, because that's always a fear of mine when that unfortunate thing called firing might need to happen.
Yeah.
I'm scared of the ripple effect it could have. How do you keep a culture intact during those moments?
Yeah, that's a good question, Drew. So one of, I would say, my strengths, but also weaknesses, is I'm very transparent, sometimes to a fault. And I tell my team this all the time. Sometimes I share too much. But I think to answer your question, I think part of it is just being honest with the team, over communicating, being okay to be vulnerable. There's times where we've had emotional meetings where maybe tears were shed, or and that's okay. And I think as long as you over communicate, you're transparent, you're empathetic, and you just show that you care, and I think as long as you do that, and then you also communicate, here's why we're doing it, then 9 times out of 10, most of the people, they understand it, they appreciate it, and it's fine. So that's how we do it. I'm sure there's probably other ways to skin that cat, but I'm just a big believer on being transparent, over communicate. If it bites me in the ass occasionally because we're doing what I think is the right thing, then I'm okay with that.
Well, that's a benefit and a con of being a leader, right? No matter what happens, it's on you. Right. Whether it's a win, it's on you. If it's a loss, it's on you too. Right. I think what you're describing is the importance of the why behind the what.
Yes.
And communicating that
Yep.
over and over and over. We have a phrase in our office, like, over communication is not possible.
Right.
I mean, you're brand strategist with us. That's good. I just don't think it is. And I think in the world of business where like money is being, handed and like trust is being handed over communication is not possible. Katie is your brand strategist. She is like the ultimate communicator, right? Like it's just, she's impeccable at that. Like project management, details, you never have to wonder like where things are at if Katie is in your corner. And like, I think a part of that is because like she's been with us long enough. She has heard me say over and over and over communication is not possible because there's always a detail. Someone will always get distracted. Someone will always be thinking about something else. Somebody will always skip past that line in that email unintentionally, right? It's impossible to over communicate. And during times specifically where like maybe that culture or the company is on tilt, where like people are unsure of what's going to happen next or what just happened and how that affects them, how it's going to affect their job. Those are the moments where like describing that and communicating that why behind the what matter the most. Right.
Yep. No, yeah. I totally agree. And I promise this is not, you didn't set me up for this. It's not a plug for your company. But that has been,
that's where I did it. Yeah.
As we are a customer of you guys or a client of you guys, but that has been, I would say, probably the number one takeaway that our team has noticed that I appreciate is that you guys do over communicate. And I agree. I mean, it's just like in our business with our customers. I mean, I don't think you can over communicate with your customers. And they appreciate that. So yeah, no, I would totally agree with that.
Love that. Okay. Next question. How do you practically reinforce this culture? I mean, do you start your culture in the hiring process? Is it through training, leadership behavior, maybe rituals or something else? How do you reinforce and like do it in a practical way to keep the culture where it's at?
So, culture, at least for us, has evolved. I mean, where we're at today is not where we were 2 years ago or 4 years ago. And I'd like to think where we're going to be 4 years from now will be even better than where we're at today. But I mean, one of the things that we've implemented in the last year is we actually sat down and defined our core values. And coming from corporate, the whole core value thing was always looked upon with skepticism and cynicism. Like, okay, yeah, whatever. You say those 5 things, but you don't really mean it. So
it's a poster on a wall.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. And that was always my mindset. So when I started joining some of these business groups and they were talking about it, I'm like, okay, I bought into it again. And so we sat down with the leadership team and put our core values in place. And one of the concerns that they had is that that's all great, but are we just going to be like corporate and it's just going to be something on a wall? And I was like, well, it will be if we don't act on it every day. And so I say that, so to answer your question, so we have our 5 defined core values. Don't ask me to recite them. I know I should memorize them.
You're under pressure right now. Yeah,
I know. So I know the last one, cause that's the one that resonates the most. But my point is so now in every interview, we give them our core values and say, okay, we live by this. So, and we tell them that if you come in and work for us, whether you're in the office or the field staff, and you don't align to these core values, you will not last very long here. And we're very transparent. We just hired she just started today, CFO, director of HR, and she's going to be great. But we went through that and I'm like, okay, this is how we operate. If you take yourself too serious, if you can't handle a sarcastic sense of humor, you won't last long here. And so we're just very, very transparent to new hires on what to expect because we want them to be successful. We don't want them to come in and fail. And then for our existing staff, I mean, the way that we incorporate into meetings, we have, we do EOS, and I know it sounds silly, but we rename stuff. So it's not a Segway. We call it a Segoo, or, we just purposely,
Love it.
change stuff. Or, it used to be, I'm a very data driven guy. And one thing that would always drive me bananas is when someone would say, oh, we had a ton of complaints today. Okay, well, what is a ton? We had 3. All right. So we had to, and I think I showed Joe and Katie this, but we actually defined a card that's on everybody's desk that, okay, when you say a few, here's how many it means. When you say,
Yeah, a couple or something like that. Yeah.
Or we've got an F ton and an S ton. Okay, an S ton is more than 100. So it's little things like that we just try to incorporate into the culture, just to help grow it and help people realize if you're going to be here and work here and be successful, you're going to have to fit in, and we just try to encourage that.
I love that. I love that the timing of us having this conversation is wrapped up in you guys launching EOS, because we're like 3 to 4 months. I don't know if you know this, like we're 3 to 4 months also integrating EOS right now, like in our agency. So I'm right there with you. But one of the best things about EOS to me is the clarity and accountability that it provides. And like there's a really great phrase. I don't know if it's in Traction or if this heard at other places. But what gets measured gets done.
Yep.
Right. And like a lot of times those scorecards that EOS provides play a really great place for that. But it's also that word accountability. We've had multiple people interview for this podcast on culture. And they said, like, honestly, a culture to me, a good culture to me is where everyone is very clear on what's expected of them and they're held to it, which I think as a boss, sometimes that can be a scary thing, because if you're the one, oh, look, I got a thumbs up. If you're the one holding people accountable, then you're the big, bad, buff boss guy walking around, like making sure people are doing, well, you better be doing your job, like that kind of thing. But at the same time, there's a way to do it. I want to steal your word again, but like in a humane way, and people appreciate it. I think it's sometimes hard too as an entrepreneur. I don't want anybody keeping me accountable. I'm the entrepreneur, right? Like I'm the crazy squirrel brain that comes up with 7 ideas. Like, yeah, that's why I did this, so I could do what I want. So then we assume that everybody else has that same idea too. But like if you're an employee and you are just wandering off in the wilderness, not knowing what's expected of you, nobody's keeping you accountable to what they said is expected of you. It's frustrating. And like people don't leave bad jobs. People leave bad managers or bad bosses, right? I'm a big believer in that. So how have you already seen in your EOS journey how that might be great for your culture, and like how it can maybe even make what you've already built even better?
In terms of just having metrics and holding people accountable?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. No, great question. So I would, a great example is, we just started EOS this year, and we've got our metric scorecard, and the last 2 years, we didn't measure because we didn't feel like we needed to abandonment rate for our calls, right? So I'm going to use something that's very tangible. Had no idea what it was, so we started keeping track of it. We started looking at it's 40%, and I don't know how familiar you are with call center metrics, but anything over 10% is considered bad. If you're at 40%, that's pretty god awful. Like that's almost half your calls aren't being answered. And my point is so once we started implementing that and we started reviewing that in our weekly leadership meetings, well, guess which division really started looking at ways to improve abandonment rate. And now it's still higher than I'd like it to be. It's down to 20-ish, but now that we're measuring it, okay,
cut it in half. That's something to celebrate. You cut it in half.
Right? Yeah, we're moving in the right direction. But the other thing too is then people start to correlate that to, well, that 40% means that 40% of our customers or leads are having a bad experience with us. And that's not one of our core values. And so, it's just once we've started putting numbers and and it also goes back to, as a manager, I don't know, maybe you've had this experience where you implement something, and if you, the manager, don't follow up on it, your team figures out pretty quickly it's not that important.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not that important to me, then they're not paying attention to it. And so, yeah, this has just allowed us to, to hold everybody accountable. But it's also, you made a comment about culture, and it goes back to, if you have the right people in your company, they want to be held accountable, because it's a
Yeah.
way for them to keep score of, hey, I'm doing well, I'm doing great, or not, and I want to do better. And
Mm-hmm.
it's the employees that aren't your A type players, that they're the ones that don't like to be held accountable, but they're really ones that probably shouldn't be in your organization anyways.
Yeah.
And so
Or
that's
they're
big
on
too.
the wrong seat on the bus,
Right.
or something like that. Yeah.
Exactly.
No, 100% right. No, it's interesting. And so far, the conversations we've had about culture on this show, EOS has not been brought up yet. So it's super interesting. Honestly, we could do a whole season on EOS, or just like entrepreneurial structures in general and
Right.
operating systems. And you're probably feeling the same way I was. I remember when I was asking around, because the same way you're in groups for green industry companies, I'm in like agency groups of
Right.
other agency owners and things like that. And the multiple times I heard people say the only regret you'll have is not starting it sooner. And like, it's wild to me how accurate that is. I often look and think around, like, how the heck did we do anything before?
Right.
Like L10 meetings, because we've got like departmental L10s now where the fulfillment team is doing their L10s, talking about things. We've got sales L10s, we've got leadership L10s. Like, we're all in now. And it's wild to be like, wait, how did we get anything done like before this? It's
Yeah,
amazing.
no, I mean, I agree. So, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Colby Index. I know
Yep.
it's used. So I'm a quick start. So I I can handle not having processes
Yep.
and stuff, right? And that's great. But again, as you start to get bigger and you've got 40 some odd people, you kind of need to have a little structure. And so it's been good for me, because I'm typically an unstructured person, which is
Yep.
weird because I'm a data guy. But and it's helped us kind of put that structure that we need around the company. So no, I mean, I look at our scorecard now every week.
Yeah.
And then now we're trying to figure, okay, well, how do we go to phase 2 and implement it even broader throughout the
Yep.
organization. So no, yeah, we could talk about that'd be another podcast. I'd say save
Yeah.
that one and H2B as 2 other podcasts sometime.
I love it. Absolutely. Yeah, love it. If I were in Argyle right now and I walked up to your frontline team and asked them, how would you define the culture here at Evergreen? What would you want them to say? And what do you think they'd actually say?
I would want them to say that Evergreen cares about me as an individual, not just personally, but also from a career standpoint. And I know that, man, maybe that's cliche, but I mean, I would want them to say that. And the other thing I would want them to say is, Evergreen's great. We're always looking for great people. You should come work for us.
Mm.
And that's like, if I guess if I had to narrow it down, I would say that's what I would want, because that was part of the goal of doing that. Is we want them when when they're at lunch at the gas station, and we've had a handful of guys referred, we want them like proud to wear the Evergreen shirt and to say, yeah, you're not happy over here, come work for us. Our boss cares about us, and we had great opportunity to grow, get paid well. Yeah, I guess if I were to boil it down, Drew, I would say we have such a great company. You should come work for us. Or if you're a client, we deliver the best service. You're not going to find a company that's going to treat you as better than we do as a client. You should come do business with us. I don't know,
Love
maybe
it.
that's kind of cliche, but
Yeah, when your staff is doing your recruiting for you, it's pretty darn good. That's a good sign,
it's
right?
awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah. Do you see that a lot?
We do. Yeah. I mean, we
Yeah.
always start with, I mean, our, I don't have an exact number, but I would say our voluntary turnover is probably like in the low single digits. We just don't have too many people
Wow.
leave.
Which
And
is huge for your world. Congrats on that.
it's
Well done.
it's huge. And then yeah, in terms of, I mean, we probably get, I don't know, I'm trying to think and go through the list, Javier. We probably get 1 to 2 guys a year that work for us based on referrals from existing employees,
Wow.
which is great because our employees know our standards. So we know that more often than not, they're not going to recommend someone that they don't think can can meet our standards. So we're already kind of starting with, we know they're probably a pretty good employee that knows what they're doing. And then once they get in and see that, I mean, I'd say 1 to 2 a year, maybe. Just guys wanting to bring their friends over, or people will say, hey, when you have a slot that's open, I've got 2 guys that would like to come work for us.
That's amazing.
And we're not perfect, right? So it's not like, but it in this labor market, in this day and age, and it's only going to get worse. It's definitely helpful.
Love that. Fill in the blank here. Company culture dies when blank. What's a culture killer?
Culture killer. Okay. Company culture. Okay. So let's see if I can explain this well and succinctly. Company culture dies when you don't get a cancer out of your organization quickly. And what I mean by that is that if you have someone that either maybe was part of the company, and for whatever reason, maybe they're not bought into the culture anymore, or and they're gossiping, or they're just, I hate to use the word cancer, but I mean that's how I would describe it. But not getting those people out quickly, it can be a killer, because then all that negativity just permeates throughout the organization, and we've seen it here before, where maybe I didn't act quick enough and I should have, or other times where we saw it happening and we acted quickly, and then the whole mood just of the office of the corporation just changed. So I'd say that's one, and then the second one, it goes back to, I mean, if you have a culture and you want A-type players and you've got core values that align with those players, and you bring someone in that doesn't align to that, same thing, you got to get them out quickly. Otherwise, that's going to bring everybody else down. And the last thing you want to do is keep a C-type player just because you're trying to be too sensitive to their feelings, and you got 3 A players that leave because they're just tired of working with that person. And I think those two are probably the biggest killer.
Isn't that such an example of the phrase "choose your hard"?
Yeah.
You either choose to have the hard conversation that nobody likes to have, and if you do like to have, there might be something wrong with you. Like the conversation of firing someone or like letting someone go. You can either choose that hard, or you're going to choose the hard of like what it could potentially do to the company as a whole, and all the issues that could come with it. Right.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that's probably that we talked about it earlier in the podcast, but that is a big challenge as a small business owner, is to be able to make that type of decision, knowing that you're making a decision based on the greater good of the 45 people you have, not the one that's not performing or not buying into the culture or damaging the culture. And that's just something we've learned over the last 6.5 years, and we'll probably keep learning.
Love that. So the people listening to this podcast are probably all across the board. We have maybe someone who's looking to start their home service business tomorrow, and they're trying to like soak up all the information early on. Or we have people like yourself that maybe they're multiple years into this, like multiple 7-figure businesses. What is one practical piece of advice that someone listening to this could take away and potentially even start tomorrow, and like to help embetter their culture at their company that they have, or maybe like their future company that they're building? Because not everybody tomorrow can start a 401k program, or like those deep benefits, but like what's some low-hanging fruit that someone could possibly do like tomorrow to help better their culture?
Okay. So I've got one that's probably very like tactical, that's simple. And another one that's I guess it's more strategic, but I mean, I think the low hanging fruit. Okay. So this may be silly, but one of the things that I'm real big on is when all of my employees walk through the door, I say, hi, good morning. And I know that sounds like, oh, that's whatever, that doesn't mean much or whatever. But it just starts the day with, okay, I'm acknowledging you, you're here. We're going to start off the day well. I'm a big believer in that. I try to get my team to do it, with all of their staff, because I think it's important for people to, even if it's small things, to think, hey, their manager cares about me. So that's a very like, okay, yeah, we could do that, but you'd be surprised how often that doesn't happen
Sure.
in companies. So that's a very small thing. The other thing that's a little more broader, and I think this goes to any any small business, is join a business group,
Mm.
join a peer group, join a group. And I say that because your question was, okay, what are something they could do tomorrow that could help their culture? Um, Most of the things that we've implemented or incorporated into our business, either we learned from other peers that are doing it or thought about doing it or want to do it. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And
Yeah.
just being vulnerable enough to know that I don't know everything. I mean, I tell my team that I do, but but I don't. Right? No, I'm teasing. No, I don't know everything, and I was lucky for me when I came in because I didn't know much about lawn care. Uh, I was like a sponge, open book, very vulnerable.
Mm.
I mean, I've got degrees and I've got lots of experience of managing multi-million dollar organizations, but in this industry, I didn't know shit. And so being vulnerable enough to go learn, and be open to learning, and then trying to implement things that you've learned, that would be the thing that if I was starting a business or maybe trying to grow a business, that's probably the first thing I would do in hindsight, because that really just elevated our business, and that's where we got some of these ideas about culture and books
Yeah.
to read. Right? Okay, what are good books to read? Right? So I don't know if that answered your question, but
100%.
that's what I would do.
My my wife, who, I mean, you work with your wife as well, so
Yeah,
goodness, could we have a podcast on that topic? But she obviously is the smarter one of the two of us,
it's
and
usually how it is.
her Facebook cover photo um, was like ingrained in my brain. But all it is, it's like this picture of like this outdoor billboard,
Yeah,
and it simply says, "Be the reason someone feels welcomed, seen, heard, valued, and loved."
it's great.
That's it, right?
Yeah,
And I think that's what you're describing. It might seem like the smallest of actions to simply just say hello to them. But like I'm telling you, the feeling they get from just being greeted compared to the feeling they get when they don't get greeted, that small little good morning could change everything, right? And that is that one little step to make them feel seen, welcomed, valued, loved.
yep. No, and just one other. No, I totally agree, Drew. One other example of where actually got criticized a couple years ago, because as we started to grow and I hired a field supervisor to manage the field staff, and I started to become, um, not disengaged, but just further removed from the day to day. Which, as an owner, that's what you want as you continue to grow.
Yep.
But one of the criticism I got from the field supervisor was, the field staff, because they're like, you're not out there saying hi anymore and greeting them. And I know that sounds silly,
Mm.
but most of our team is either bilingual or speak Spanish, and so I made a point in 2019 to at least learn enough to where I could talk to them like work
Yeah.
related stuff and say hi and stuff like that. And we had some great guys that helped teach me. But so I would make a point, like every morning I'd say hi to everybody that walked in the door, field staff included. And anyways, my point is but when I started to kind of, all right, I got to start focusing on other things. They actually relayed that message to Noel, our supervisor, saying, we kind of missed that. So my point is, great example of, I mean, that's something that they recognized. And then when I started not doing it, uh, they didn't like it, which is great. I mean, that's in some ways it's good, right? So it just goes back to your example. I mean,
Mm.
I got that example 2 years ago, and so now I try to make more of a point to do that as much as I can. But yeah, I think it's a small thing to do, and it can have a huge impact.
Hey, well, thank you for being on this episode today. Really appreciate your time and your insight that you've been providing to everybody listening. And hopefully, everybody at home, you're able to listen to this or watch this wherever you're listening or watching and get some nuggets that you can take with you as soon as possible to start turning your culture around in your home service business. And Rusty, you've played a big role in that today. I really appreciate you and your time, and you being a client of us for as long as you have, and hopefully forever. It's good to have you on the show. It's good to have you on our client. So if people want to connect with you and learn more about what you're doing at Evergreen, how would they do that?
Sure. You can go online. You can email me. Can I give them my email or?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's Rusty at Evergreen LLS, LarrySam.com. Yeah, I'm open book. I'm a huge believer in sharing. Not only, I talk to competitors in our market. Like I try to make friends with everybody. I just think there's so much knowledge to gain. So yeah, happy to help.
Love that. Awesome. Well, thanks for being here again today. Thank you guys for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.